All right, here we go. Hi, I am Dr. Jacob Lauritsen, and this is Read, Write, and Cite, channel where I teach you how to read, write, and cite for your college classes. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to write an annotated bibliography. I'm recording this April 3rd, 2020. We're in the middle of the coronavirus epidemic, and for me to get through to my students and to you, I gotta record some more videos. This is something that they're doing right now, but I hope this is something that can help all of you, no matter who you are. So I'm gonna walk through kind of a fake annotated bibliography. I'm gonna explain what it is, why you might want to do it, and just kind of go from there. Okay, so what you can see is I've got a Google Doc here in front of me. This is a free word processor that you can use. All you need is a free Google account. And I'm also going to be using Google Scholar, which is also free and accessible for anybody. Okay, so money shouldn't hold us back so long as we have access to the internet. All right, so first, let me explain what is an annotated bibliography. As the name suggests, annotated means notes. Bibliography is a collection of works or sources. So an annotated bibliography, as the name suggests, is going to be a document that has notations of sources. Okay, now what does that look like? Well, what I require my students to do, and your teachers may require something different, is to have a citation, just like you would in a works cited page, because my students write in MLA, a citation followed by a paragraph that explains information about the source. Okay, so let's do it. I have a couple of sources that I've pulled out in Google Scholar from a previous video. These are things that I just starred when I was doing a search, and so it shows up in my library section. So it's kind of got it saved there, which is fantastic. And if you use Google Scholar, you'll see that there is this little quotation mark underneath the information, which is going to pull up all your citation information. So I'm going to click on that. You'll see a big screen pop up. Depending on which citation style you're using, it's going to help save you a bunch of time. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a little more effort. There is. My students are English students, so they're going to be using MLA, but if you're not in an English class, you might be using APA or some other citation style. It's got 5 different styles here that you can choose from. You can also send them directly over to BibTeX, EndNote, RefMan, or RefWorks as well. We're going to be doing this in the Google Doc, so I'm just going to select this. It automatically selects everything. I'm going to hit Control-C as a hotkeys for copy on my computer. Yours might be Command-C if you're using a Mac. And I'm just going to click over to my Google Doc, where I'm going to hit Control-V, and it's going to paste it. Okay, so I'm not done yet. There's still a little bit more work I need to do. I had a comment recently in one of the YouTube videos. A teacher, I assume it was a teacher, was concerned that I was suggesting using double spacing in a Google Doc, which you would click the line spacing feature right here. Because Microsoft Word automatically adds some extra spacing. I responded saying I would suggest overriding the automatic spacing because it messes up your paragraphs anyway. But obviously the teacher of your class, whether you are a teacher or whatever, it's the teacher's prerogative what the requirements for the paper are, right? So if you're a teacher, it's up to you what you're going to require. If you're a student, make sure you know what the teacher wants and then do that. Okay, I try to teach a very basic version of MLA that doesn't have my personal opinions or styles built into it, so that you kind of know a baseline and then you can go from there. Okay, so to turn this into an MLA formatted correctly, depending on your teacher, they may want you to use Times New Roman. That's not necessarily required by MLA anymore. I'm going to change it to 12-point font. And now we're almost there. there's one thing that we still have to do, and we have to turn this into a hanging indent. And let's see if I can remember how to do that in there we go. Okay. Okay. All right. So I figured out how to do it. I'm going to back up. In Google Docs, might be a little different no matter whatever program you're using. I went to Format, Align and Indent, Indentation Options. I selected that, and then I go down to Hanging Indent. Hanging Indent, it's the first line of a paragraph is going to be justified all the way to the left, and then every line after that will be indented. So if I hit apply, boom, it's indented. This would be following MLA right here. All right, so we're good. I would hit enter, start a new line, and I mean, you know, we can have our, you know, name. I'm doing the rest of the MLA stuff right now. This is MLA, so works cited. I'm going to go ahead and add our page numbers, which I'm going to put in the upper right hand corner. I'll put my last name, student's last name. Make sure it's also formatted to meet everything else. So I'm going to put Times New Roman 12. Again, this is how things used to be. I don't know that MLA specifically requires Times New Roman 12 anymore, but when all else fails, do that. Okay, all right, so we're out. Our page is formatted. If it was just an annotated bibliography, you would put this on the first page in MLA. All right, so we have the citation. What would follow underneath this would be the annotation. Now, this is just a source I found. I haven't actually read it, so I couldn't come up with a summary. But what I would suggest that you do is include information like this. Your teacher may ask for something different. This is what I would suggest. Well, let me back up and explain for a bit. Okay, annotated bibliography might be something that a teacher requires you to do. I would suggest you do it even if a teacher doesn't ask you to do it. Why? It's a tool. It's a tool to help you write a paper that has several sources, right? Whether that's an essay, it's a research project, or something else. If you're dealing with a lot of sources, an annotated bibliography is a great tool to help you keep track of your research. I'm going to go and change this title because it's bugging me. I'm going to make annotated bibliography the title. Okay. Normally, works cited would be what would go ahead of this. Anyway, it's not bothering me anymore. All right. For the research paper that my students are working on, they need 10 sources, right? So I asked them to write an annotated bibliography so that they can, one, show me that they found all their sources. That's the number one thing for me as a teacher. But most importantly, I want them to do the thought process of thinking through, okay, I found all the sources, and then they need to annotate, which is a note, if you will, to themselves. But I fully expect this to be some writing that they could probably copy and paste directly into a paper, like their literature review. Okay, so kinds of things you might want to include in an annotation. Author's main points, that would be really important. How this source relates with other sources. How this source relates to the paper. And maybe just as a personal note, what you think about the source. You know, do you agree? Do you disagree? Etc. Does that make sense? All right, now this wouldn't need to be anything special. Now your teachers may ask you to indent or something like that, right? I would ask my students to write a good paragraph, which, you know, I don't know, a good 90 words. This right here would be, you know, 25. So, you know, you write 4 sentences, you'll get to 90. Because that helps them get through the big things. You know, okay, what's the author have to say? How does this relate to your other sources? How does this relate to your paper? If you know that, you have a pretty good idea how useful this source is going to be for you in your paper, right? Because you've thought it through. And then this is the kind of thing which may not end up in the paper. This is more an annotation, a note for yourself. This is you thinking through, how is this going to be relevant to what you have to say? Because again, a research project is not just sharing what the world has to say, but it's putting your perspective into it. Otherwise, what value, I mean, what are you adding to the world if you're not adding your insight, your perspective, right? That's one of the things I try to reinforce with my students, is that so much of this is you're not simply just repeating something back to make sure that you get it. That's kind of a dumb thought process at this point. If you're in college at some point, you need to start adding to the world instead of just repeating back that you get it, right? It's very low on the depth of knowledge. Anyway, so this is kind of what it looks like. Let's go through and do it one more time and kind of give you an idea. So let's go back here. Let's add the next source. I'm going to go down to where it says Cite. I'm going to copy, Control C, come back here, Control V. It's not formatted the way that I want it to, so I'm going to reformat it. Times New Roman, 12-point font. It already had it on the hanging indent, which is nice. And then again, I'd put insert some sort of text, right? Now this may be a little bit confusing. For my students, I don't mind if you add a little bit of space between things, just because that makes it easier to read. So there you go. You'd have, you know, I'm going to copy this just to make it look a little bit. You know, a paragraph might look more like this, even though the text is just repeating over and over again. Just give you an idea what annotated bibliography might end up looking like. And again, we're going to change this back because it's okay, sorry. All right, so an annotated bibliography might look like this. Okay, you're formatted following MLA. You've got a citation, a complete reference, a works cited entry, followed by an annotation, followed by the next one. Now, you would want to make sure that this is in alphabetical order. N goes before Y, so if I was doing this right, I would put this up here. And I'd switch this all back. Got to reformat this again because I switched it back to my hanging indent. So I'll fix it one more time. You've seen it enough times, this should make sense, right? Okay. All right, so alphabetical order, you have your citation, an annotation, citation, annotation, and if you format it correctly, your page number is going to update every time. This is what an annotated bibliography is going to look like. Now again, why would you do this? Once you've created a document like this, when it comes to writing the actual research project, you've already got a ton of information that you've written, which you could copy and paste over to a new document. You know how they relate to each other. You just got to kind of write it out, paper format. But you've already also done a lot of the thinking. You know how this source relates to this source because you've thought it through. This is the benefit of doing this. Not just to prove your teacher that you've done the work, but you're doing work that can actually help you. And that's what I think is relevant for you. So if you're one of my students, I hope this is helpful. If you're not, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful for you as well. And I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Jacob Larson. This has been Read, Write, and Cite. And good luck out there working on your annotated bibliographies. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.